Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Elixir podcast, where we cover the news of the community and learn from each other. My name is Mark Erickson.
And I'm David Bernheisel.
Let's jump into the news. First up, we just wanted to follow up with some of the fun and exciting Tidewave excitement that was going around and seeing that in the community. I even saw some people talking about it in the Rails community, just saying how they were able to use that and say, oh, you should try this. And I thought that was cool. So like in that way, they are reaching outside of the Elixir community is a way of trying to bring in maybe more awareness and maybe more people to Elixir too. But we should probably remind people what Tidewave is.
So Tidewave, as of time of recording, it was announced just this past week. And Tidewave is a MCP server specific for Phoenix and Rails as well. And so it ties into your application to have application insights including like your database connections, your runtime, like characteristics, your logs, right? Things along those lines. So what that effectually means is you can connect your AI assistant and chat to your AI assistant, and it can actually make changes to your application like while it's running. And so if it makes a change and it makes a bad change, then it can see that it no longer compiles and, try to make an adjustment at that point, or, see that the database query comes back incorrect and make an adjustment from there. Those are theoretical. I'm hoping that that's what it can actually do, right? But when you have those connections, that's what it should be able to do. With Phoenix, it's like just a plug. You add in a Tidewave plug, and that Tidewave plug serves up the events that is needed for the MCP server to communicate with your AI agents.
As you said, it's just running inside your application. So you can get plenty of different MCP servers. Some are just standalone things. They're their own little server that's running outside of an application. They can connect you up to different package repositories or things like that. So this is running in your app in dev-only mode. So it's really interesting because of that. Yeah, you're getting insights into what's actually happening with the application right now. Like one of the cool little demos I saw that someone was tweeting about was asking their AI agent what was the current live view that they were viewing. And it was able to figure out which live view it was, but
the live view process?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like, that's kind of cool stuff. It's like, it's really inspecting what's happening at the runtime. Yeah, so we just wanted to share a few of the ones that we saw that were pretty interesting and giving people some ideas of different ways people are having success in playing with this. So Bryant shared on X that Tidewave pairs really well with open jobs. Cursor can run the job and then check its status and make changes based on what happened since any errors are stored in the record. It's like, that's fun.
Pretty nice.
It's like, it's all database at that point, right? So yeah, that makes sense. So they were using it to develop and debug open jobs. So another one was Tidewave for Elixir is promising. I had a bug today that Claude couldn't solve. I connected Tidewave to VS Code, ran package_docs_search tool, and it found the fix right away. That's cool.
There's another post out there. It says, due to the AI revolution, we programmers may write less code ourselves, but we still have to read it if we want to be responsible. Yeah. Choosing a human-friendly and readable programming language is still important. That's why I am betting on Elixir and Phoenix. Nice.
That's true, though. I've been using Cursor, and Cursor has this mode where it'll automatically choose the model that it thinks is the best one to use. Or sometimes maybe the model that you want to use by preference is not available. And it's like they're having outages or just they're overloaded and saying, come back later. So it will fall back to a different model. And I have seen when it falls back to some models, the code it generates is horrible. It is useless and just makes me angry. So it's like the model is very important. So like I have found the best experience using Claude 3.7 with Cursor with Elixir code, right? Like that pairing, it does a better job with Elixir code than other things that I've tried. But yeah, it's still important that you understand what it generates, because otherwise it'll just splat out a whole bunch of garbage. And it may actually work, but you're like, this is unmaintainable.
Yeah. So without Tidewave, for what it's worth, I asked an agent to put in a health check route.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it got it wrong. I mean, it was close, but yeah, it got it pretty wrong. And I was using Gemini. I'm not sure which version. Like, it wasn't the latest one that's like on top of all the AI charts, but it was the one before that. It got close. Like, it knew to put it in the plug router early on, but then it referenced it like a controller and then didn't actually generate the controller. Anyway, it led me into the right direction at least, but it certainly wasn't gonna work. I'm curious, once I get Tidewave installed on my stuff, how well that's going to improve, the agent's understanding of things. Because as soon as it did that, I would see, it can't compile, right? Now that I think of it, how does this MCP worker, this MCP server, work when your app can't compile? I'm going to have to find that out on my own, I guess. But if it screws up so badly that your app can't compile anymore, then is your dev server still working? To serve up MCP server stuff?
It's true. It's not. But I think at the same time, normal AI stuff is you just say mix compile and then fix the errors. So that actually brings up a good point. I did want to mention that I saw in the Tidewave docs, they have a tips and tricks guide or section. And I totally recommend checking that out. It suggests some prompts to put in rules. Rules is like the system prompt for what the AI should know about your application. So it's not coming at it fresh, where every time you say, can you do this? It has to rediscover the project and figure out, what is this thing? That's putting in the rules. And so this is some prompts and things that it suggests for putting in the rules. And one of the rules is this is a Phoenix application which uses Tailwind and Daisy UI. Prefer using LiveView instead of regular controllers. Once you're done with changes, run mix compile and fix any issues. Write tests for your changes and run mix test afterwards. So you customize that for your project. The idea is you're telling the AI, after you make changes, run mix compile and fix any issues. So if it did totally blow stuff up and the MCP server's not running anymore, that general rule should get the AI back up and going.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Okay. I wonder if it's reasonable enough to revert changes. You're like, okay, I messed up bad. I got to start over. Let's roll all that back.
There's one more Tidewave item that we wanted to mention, which was Zach Daniel of Ash Framework said, you can now install Tidewave.ai through the Ash HQ installer. And Zach teased that he'll be sharing more in the coming weeks. Today's episode is sponsored by Paraxial.io. Every day, hackers search the internet for vulnerable applications, aiming to steal sensitive data, commit fraud, and spitefully ruin the weekend of a hardworking developer. Paraxial.io is the first and only security platform with full Elixir support that stops these attacks. Developers love the Elixir native protection. Management loves Paraxial.io metrics that detail the security accomplishments of engineering, which are required for SOC 2, ISO, and HIPAA compliance. Sign up for a free trial of Paraxial today and mention Thinking Elixir when you schedule a demo for a limited time offer. Check it out today at Paraxial.io.
All right, next up, Elixir 1.19 is going to deprecate regexes in module attributes. I remember some inconsistent behaviors here. I can't pin it down quite yet, but in this PR and in this update, I did learn a little bit more. And there's a couple of blog posts and the PR itself that explains the issue a little bit more. And so I'll summarize a little bit here too. But OTP 28 handles regexes a little bit differently. I think this is also where they upgraded PCRE to regexes. In Elixir 1.19, here's the change. It's going to introduce a change that deprecates storing regular expressions, which is that R sigil, right, in module attributes. This is because of OTP 28, which now emits references instead of binaries when compiling those regexes. So those references are, a runtime, thing. They don't exist in the compile time world, right? So as a result, regexes stored in the module attributes can no longer be inlined at compile time. While 1.19 includes a special case workaround that recompiles injected regexes, this feature will now be deprecated. For what it's worth, this will also be backported to Elixir 1.18, but not but not with the deprecation warning, so you can continue trekking on. So if you're on 1.18 on a newer OTP, you won't really see anything. But in 1.19 and forward, Elixir is going to guide you to a better practice, right? You might be wondering, okay, well, what do I need to do about this? Well, instead of storing it in a module attribute, just create yourself a little function, I guess, that gives you the regex that you're looking for. That little constant, I guess, right? And Fabian Becker wrote a blog post showing how to introduce a credo rule, right? To detect these module attributes in earlier versions of Elixir. So that way you can kind of transition your way out of that. So we got a blog post to geekmonkey.org where a post describes that. I ran the credo, the credo check in my code base, definitely found all the ones that I had in there. And a great example too of, one of those things it's like that credo can be really good for. Credo isn't just about, upcoming warnings or, deprecations, because the compiler will do that too. But it's also about all these other things that may be, down the road, but also just another good practice like is that we developers tend to forget about map.new. Map.new is a good function for like transforming like a list of keywords or something into a map. Sometimes you'll do that, in 3 phases or 2 phases or something to like kind of map it and then put it into, something else. But you can just do map.new and that's one function. So we have, in my code base, a credo check that'll just look for that. So credo is a great tool for that kind of stuff. It's really great. So in this case, Elixir 1.19, deprecating regular expressions in module attributes. Go store them somewhere else at this point, and look forward to the faster, better, stronger, better regexes anyway in OTP 28.
And next up, Brian Cardarella shared that the LiveViewNative project has started a new GitHub organization and a couple of projects. The organization is called OTP Interop. And so we've got a link to that. And Brian explained it as, we've started to extract some of the work that we've been doing to enable offline mode for LiveViewNative. So that's cool. I think it's great that he's dedicating some time and effort to making some of that more reusable for other people and other projects. And so the 2 projects that we see there right now under the GitHub org, there's one called Swift Erlang Actor System, which is described as an Erlang/Elixir integration for Swift distributed actors. And then there's another one called Elixir Pack, which is build your Elixir application for iOS. Pretty early days for both of these projects and the extraction work, but I think it's really great that it's being done. I'm really interested to see when there's more documentation about these, like how they might be used and more broadly. I have some ideas of what Elixir Pack might mean, but there's not a whole lot there right now to tell me. I just think it's great and want to pass that along.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like the docs for the Swift Erlang Actor System one. This isn't. I don't see how this is about offline mode quite yet. But in Swift, you can connect to your distributed, nodes, and then your Swift node is one of those nodes. It's kind of crazy looking. Like it's weird to see that. And so I guess that's a step maybe to offline the offline capabilities, because part of the whole nodes and distributed nature of it is that nodes can come up and down all the time, right? And and it's probably the backbone of syncing things. When a node comes up, you would probably sync or send a lot of state over to it, or if it's going offline, maybe go flush a bunch of state to some other node before it shuts down. Interesting.
Yep.
All right. Well, next up, speaking of LiveViewNative, there's some industry news too, but we'll start with the LiveViewNative part of this. LiveViewNative supports the new, begrudgingly new maybe, by Apple, begrudgingly new App Store allowances for outside transaction services such as Stripe. So we've got a post to Brian Cardarella's post, and it's got a nice little video of it, a little 45-second video of just illustrating it. That's pretty interesting. I honestly don't know what LiveViewNative has to do with that, but very nice to see that it's not like we have to wait for something, for it to work in LiveViewNative. It's LiveViewNative is well, it's in the name, right? It's native.
I think what might be the LiveViewNative side of it is Stripe released an SDK for the iOS payments. And I think they're showing we can work with that SDK.
Right.
Maybe
of
that's
course.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just the video, shows the iOS simulator going on there, but you can also see your LiveView server, like your remote server, taking those events, right? Because this is ultimately a server side operation to do the transaction, to keep all your keys and stuff secret, right? And your LiveViewNative app is just working with that naturally. So yeah, this is neat.
And that brings us to the next bit of news, which is Apple and industry relevant. Now we're stepping outside of the Elixir realm, but this is relevant because so many of us work at companies where we have maybe a mobile app as a primary interface for the backend system that we're building. So just to bring everyone up to speed on what has happened, and it's not 100% settled, but here's the story so far. So back in August 2020, Epic Games sued Apple, and they were challenging Apple's App Store policies that force developers to use the Apple payment system and pay the 30% commission. And it prohibited informing users that there was even maybe an alternative payment option, like that says, you can't even link to say that you can go to my website and pay separately. That court case kind of settled on not directly labeling Apple as a monopoly. They were told, hey, you have to make it so people can have some other options. So now, April 30th, 2025, almost 4 years since the initial ruling, a U.S. federal judge has recently found Apple in contempt for willfully violating a court order that required it to allow iOS developers to offer external payment options, rather than forcing everything to be in-app purchases through Apple's system and taking the 30% commission. So the court's immediate injunction forces Apple to remove restrictions on external payments, opening the door for developers to bypass Apple's commissions entirely. So Stripe, you can imagine, they're like, we're ready, we're jumping on this. They must have already had it built in anticipation that this might happen. They quickly responded by launching detailed guides and an SDK for iOS developers, enabling them to integrate Stripe's payment processing. So it's like 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction directly or via external links, allowing for external links to like your website to have the website do it, to fundamentally change iOS app economics. This is big news. It's not just Apple that this is going to impact. This is app stores. Google will definitely be paying attention to this as well. But there's some interesting things that the judge said. Just a couple quotes that I thought were really telling. So the judge was mad, right? She said, Apple's continued attempts to interfere with competition will not be tolerated. She added, this is an injunction, not a negotiation. There are no do-overs once a party willfully disregards a court order. And then another great quote was, Apple knew exactly what it was doing and at every turn chose the most anti-competitive option. So we've got a link to Stripe's iOS SDK. As Brian Cardarella pointed out, LiveViewNative can work with this. And of course, Apple says we will appeal, but they have complied in that you could now completely bypass the App Store commission.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, because when you look at Apple's balance sheet, right, so much money comes from the App Store. That is like I think it might even be their primary source of income. So this becomes like existential threat.
I don't know about existential. I mean, I'm not going to shed a tear for the richest company in the world, but
yeah.
But it is pretty interesting. My wife was just saying the other day, is like, well, I can't buy Audible books when I'm on the phone, like you just can't because of all these dumb rules, I can't do it in the app because they owe 30% to Apple, which they don't want to do that. And even like opening it up in the browser, was just a pain in the butt, right? They just didn't want to do that. So she'd always have to go to the computer to do it. It's also a user experience issue, like the rule. I understand the rule, sure, right? But the rule made this like whole side practice, this hostile user experience practice for a lot of apps, Spotify included. Like you can't sign up on your phone. Yeah. So you have to get away from that.
I think Netflix is like that too. Maybe you have to sign up outside of it and then you can log in because they handle the payments outside. Yeah, they had to. But you're right. Companies have had to work around it and it has made the user experience worse.
So I don't know. Good news in my opinion, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, this is 4 years in the making. I thought they were already appealed and courted and reappealed and I didn't realize they could go back to the appeals, but Apple's already appealed. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So that's the interesting point is it's not necessarily over, and this is where you see the difference. Where technology and the speed of technology it just far outpaces the speed of the courts. 4 years in the making, and this has been the case with other antitrust, like Google right now is on antitrust court case stuff. But what's really interesting with these court cases is the discovery process comes out with all of these are what were said in Slack messages and emails from internal people at Apple making these decisions. And that's what they were pointing to and just pointing out how at every option where they said we could do this or this or this, they chose the one that was the most aggravating for developers, the most anti-competitive.
Yeah.
That's the interesting part about the court stuff, right? You get a little peek of what's going on behind this.
Yeah. It's so not related to payments, but I know that also in the tech world, the Pebble watch, you remember the Pebble watch? It was an old e-paper watch a long time ago, and they're kind of relaunching it. Google had bought them a while ago. It kind of got rolled into Fitbit, but nothing was ever done with Pebble. It was just kind of like it was a buyout to get them out of the industry, really. And so Pebble's coming back, and so there's a whole post on this. So I'll make sure I get it, put it in our show notes. But the main founder of the Pebble watch, he's coming back, so it's the same fella. Just reams Apple's, app development, hostility. And so in their case, Pebble is a watch. Their main competitor would be Android watches, Samsung watches, and Apple watches. And basically the app watch SDKs for like other developers, third-party developers such as Pebble, they just can't do anything. They can't do anything. They can't access the notifications, which like makes it useless. Like if there's any other kind of watch that wants to work with iOS, it kind of makes it useless. You really can't. Like they have Apple has intentionally walled out anyone else to be able to have any hardware that even gets close to the kind of level that what Apple Watch can do. Even basic things like notifications, and we're not even talking about payments, but Apple Watch has payments, involved in there too. So I don't know what it's like there. And then if you compare the operability of like the Pebble Watch, on Android, then it's just far more, superior of an integration. You can get notifications and all sorts of things. So, this is not Apple's odd decision for just payments and how to get, 30% of all the money that flows on their platforms. It's also just anything else, seemingly anything else that deals with interoperability. They just love that walled garden, I guess.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Thinking Elixir.